There's really no such thing as a dead lead. There's just a lifetime customer who hasn't needed us yet. Welcome to the Maven Marketing Podcast. Today is Maven Monday. I'm your host, Brandon Welch, and I'm joined today by one bad dude that you definitely need to know if you want to grow your company. This is the place where we help you eliminate waste in advertising, grow your business, and help you achieve the big dream. And what bigger contributor to the big dream than big sales? Brad Pearse is a veteran sales leader across multiple sales industries with a track record of crushing quotas of companies he served, including OtterBox. He's a multiple award winner of Salesperson of the Year, Sales Trainer of the Year, and New Acquisition Rep of the Year. Told you he was bad to the bone. The coolest part is after a career of knocking it out of the park for the companies he served, he extracted the things that worked at the highest levels, and he's now making them available to entrepreneurs everywhere through his company, Simplified Sales. He's the CEO and founder of Simplified Sales, and today he's going to give us some juicy takeaways you can use to improve results at all corners of your growth. I promise you're in for a treat. Please help me welcome Mr. Brad Pearse.
What's up, Brandon? Thanks for having me on.
You're looking awful Florida tan. I imagine you keep that year round, right?
I try.
So I told everybody what a bad to the bone sales guy you are, but tell us about the bad to the bone dad life, because I know that was just a tiny fraction of who you are. 2 kiddos, right?
2 kids. I've got 2 daughters. One's 10, one's 13. Been married to my wife for about 18 years. And we made the trek out here to Florida a couple years ago and absolutely love it out here. So
yeah, he's an outdoorsman. We're fellow Johnny Morris fanboys, and we had a good conversation about Bass Pro. And I'm just so glad to have you because we talk a lot about marketing. We talk a lot about the philosophical growth and the vision and the missional operation stuff you need to have in place to be qualified to grow a company. And we talk about generating those opportunities for the salespeople, but very seldom do we get to dig into the world of that salesperson. And when we met a while back, I couldn't help but think our audience needed to know you, and you have such a heart for serving people. You have such a heart for entrepreneurship, and that is what we're all about here. So we're just going to go through some things you're seeing, some things you learned, maybe why the sales industry is changing. And I know I'm going to do my very best to shut up and just let everybody absorb your wisdom. But tell me first, if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about the sales industry in America, what would that be?
there's probably one thing. I've thought about this a lot, Brandon. If you think about sales and just the profession of sales, at the end of the day, obviously every single one of us, we want to drive revenue and we want to go out there and win. However, if there's one thing that a salesperson really needs to have is the right mindset before they do anything. And that mindset is really about owning it and really treating the business. If you're working for somebody else and you are a sales rep or you're an entrepreneur, whatever that might be, this idea of treating sales in your sales territory, if you will, like it's your own business, and you've got to own it and be accountable for everything that you do on a daily basis. So
everybody who owns a business right now is going, absolutely. That's what I wanted to hear. I would ask you first, what is that in juxtaposition to? Like, what if that's what we need to have as world-class sales folks, what do we have instead now? Where are we at now? What's the state of things compared to an ownership mindset?
Everything's transactional. That's what I see. Versus actually building a relationship and owning it all the way through and doing it in a way with intentionality, if that makes sense. You got to be intentional with your sales, your approach, how you communicate, how you connect.
Yeah. That's got to be tied to the, there's a quote it goes something, I'm going to botch it, but it goes something like, mothers want their boys to be, firemen, lawyers, doctors, but no mother has ever wished for her son to be a salesman. And we just kind of associate it with such a violating thing. And I had a plenty of experience in the sales roles of other companies before I had our agency, and I guess sales would be a function of what I do here. If we don't really think of it like that, um, but I had to separate myself from that mentality. And I can't remember when or why it happened, but there was a moment where it was like, I'm not a salesperson, I'm a consultant. Um, I don't even know like when and why that happens, but um, you have obviously done that in your career. Do you remember a moment where you shifted, and what would your advice be to somebody who's maybe doing it that old way, that transactional way, and what were some of the key shifts?
For me, it was, when I started off in my career, one of the things about it is what happens is you work for somebody else or you're working for yourself, but at the end of the day, you've got specific sales goals that you need to hit, revenue numbers, all of that. And the thing about it is I don't think a lot of people realize like you can't control the outcome. And
Mhm.
if people try to like go after this specific number in that way, it's good, but you can't control the outcome. So you've got
Mm.
to kind of like step back and think through, well, how am I supposed to get to that point? How am I supposed to get to that end goal? If my quota is like $1 million a year, how am I
Yeah.
supposed to get to that $1 million? Well, there's a lot of things that have to happen in order to hit that number. And if you reinvert, basically reverse engineer the sales process
Mm.
from the end goal, it all comes back to the starting point of having the right mindset. And the shift for me when I first got into sales, and I first got into sales was actually in my family's business on the retail floor. Uh, Never sold anything
Ought to make a
before.
man out of you. That's where we all need to start, I think. I think high school ought to have 1 year of retail sales,
Yeah,
or serving in a restaurant would be even better, maybe.
yeah. Well,
So
it's interesting because I had this number that I had to hit. We all had our, revenue goals based off of the product categories that we were selling. And it was intimidating. Like you're thinking to yourself, dude, I've got to hit this number
mm,
or else I'm going to get fired. That's the mentality that I had.
mm,
So the problem with that mentality of operating in fear is that it paralyzes your ability to think creatively and your
yeah,
ability to really think through and solving problems for your client or your customer. And it just paralyzes you. And so one of the big shifts for me is that I had to find kind of my lane in terms of like, honestly, like my personality. Like I love
mm,
relationships. I like connecting with people, all of that. How do I find the right way to connect with people in a genuine, authentic way, but
wow,
yet still be in that spot where you're offering the solution and asking for the business? So once I started kind of finding my groove within my own personality and kind of figuring out, what worked for me, this idea of coming from a place of true like servanthood, empathy, connection, it changes the tone of that conversation. And
yeah,
so it goes from a transactional to a real conversation. And we all know that in sales, it's all about tone and pace.
yeah. Well, those things, man, you said so much I want to unpack there, but just to grab that tone and pace, and this natural consultant that we all want to deal with. Like we want to deal with competent consultants as consumers, right? That is so unavailable to the person who is operating out of anxiety or fear. And I thought of a couple of things. There's actually in a CEO group I'm involved with. We had a guest speaker one time, and I remember distinctly. He said, if sales leaders in America truly wanted their people to succeed, they would eliminate their quotas. They wouldn't let them know about their their quotas, because that becomes the thing. It's like the whole 38 special song, hold on loosely but don't let it go. Like we just need to
Yeah,
keep that as a lagging indicator. And I think too often we treat sales numbers and budgets and quotas like that as leading indicators of success, and all they are is a rear view mirror, right? Would you agree with that?
100%.
And so, man, I've been in some sales environments where it was a daily grind to look at your numbers, and Um, I get why they do it. Stakeholders and shareholders have to have some security and some, deductive reasoning as to when their investment's going to return to them. But that is not how humans operate.
Right.
Um, I forget who said it, but we are feeling machines that think, not thinking machines that feel. And so, tell me about where you have seen a shift in other people. So you had a mindset, and I think it probably has something to do with you being so close to the owners of the company, i.e., your parents, right?
Yep.
You got to untap that, but to the anxious salesperson, or to maybe the anxious sales leader, um, how do we tap into that relational, holistic mindset that you're talking about? Give us some other tactics.
Yeah, I think when you think about sales itself, think about times like where you're meeting somebody new,
Mm,
right? And I think a lot of it, when you think about it, when you're meeting somebody new, the very first thing that goes through your head is, what's this person's about?
mm,
What is this person about?
should
And
be.
then other questions start to kind of percolate right in your head. So what happens is you start to get in this state of mind of curiosity about that person,
Mm,
and you start asking questions. And one of the things about just human relationships in general is, if your ability to take genuine interest in the other person and ask questions about them,
yeah.
they're going to engage with you every single time, because human nature, people love to talk about themselves, right?
Nate
So
Nate could probably tell you that when we hire people on at Frank and Maven, we tell them the two most important ingredients you need to be a successful marketer are curiosity and empathy.
that's it.
Sounds like it's the same for salespeople.
It is. It is, because in a sales conversation, if I meet a prospect right away, they don't know anything about me. I don't know anything about them. They already have this preconceived notion that this dude wants to sell something to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really kind of lead into, hey, we have this great Fandango product or service or whatever that might be,
Mm-hmm.
that can help solve your problem. And you know this better than anybody, Brandon. You probably get emails and LinkedIn messages all the time, people, pitching you stuff that they don't know anything about your marketing agency.
Oh, sure.
Absolutely zero. And it's completely irrelevant to what you do and how you do things. I get them all the time. And
Yes.
so I don't want to be that guy when I was actually, prospecting and hunter mode in sales. The mind shift for me was essentially a couple of things. Number one is, it's that mindset of curiosity, but how do you get into their mind?
Mm,
So the first thing for me, and this is probably 15 years ago,
mm,
10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. But this idea of adding value to other people first
yeah.
started to break the walls down. So what I would do is I would actually go out there and do research, not only on their company, but I would do research on the prospect itself if I had access to that. LinkedIn was
Yeah.
a very powerful tool in that way. The other one was, find something in their industry or about themselves and do research on it.
Yeah.
You figure out like a helpful piece of content or article or whatever that might be, and send it to them and say, hey, John, I was just thinking about you the other day. I came across this article, thought you might enjoy it. Let me know if you have any questions.
It's
Have a
funny.
great.
It's funny you say that. That is, I think there's a deeper place that can come from, and it just makes the whole thing work. But if you're looking for a tactic, if you're a leader looking for a tactic, what Brad just said, um, I actually used Google News alerts when I was in sales.
Yes.
Do you ever use that?
Yep. Yep.
And it's just like you put in the industry and a few keywords, and every morning or every week or whatever, it'll ping you anything new that came out from the news. And so
Yes.
if you had some manufacturing client, you don't know anything about that industry, but f- holistically, yes, it was a good tactic, and holistically, it was like, I can use that and maybe get in the door, and I don't press them with my attention to detail or whatever. But holistically, I think as salespeople, we have to have that curiosity. We can fake it to a degree, and we'll be better than maybe the next guy. But like, to have a sustainable career in sales, you have to have that natural curiosity.
100%.
And I would just tell somebody, if you're not empathetic to the person or the industry, or you're not just like wildly obsessed with how they make money and how they serve their clients just naturally, like as a kid with a box of Legos, like you're probably doing the wrong thing.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. So being empathetic with the prospect doesn't mean you lay down and you just do whatever it is that you tell them.
Mm,
Being empathetic is putting yourself in their shoes and understanding where they're coming from,
mm.
but yet still have that mindset of being in control of the conversation, if you will.
So
Right. And it's
your
more,
compass.
yeah, it's more the compass. And once you understand that, then what you can do is you can actually start to guide them down the path. So
Mm,
when we think about the sales process, all that is a customer journey.
mm.
And in that customer journey that you're doing, you're literally building rapport as you go, and you're building trust and authority with them. But you still have to take control, and you still have to guide this individual or this prospect down the path because they don't know what they're looking for. They're relying on you to guide them down that path, if that
Of
makes
course.
sense. And
Yeah.
so this idea of curiosity questioning gets you to that second, third, fourth level questioning, whatever that might be, if that makes sense.
So we're gonna have that curiosity behind us. Hopefully it's naturally, hopefully we can tap into our inner curious young self, and just who is just curious about the world. Like if we can get back to that spot, I think the whole empathy thing kind of takes care of itself, because you just naturally become a human that's actually interested in them instead of pretending to be. Um, when we have that, suppose a sales professional can find that. Um, One thing I see is they might have an abundance of natural curiosity, but that thing you were saying, yeah, but we still have to take them to a process. What does a process look like that's successful? Because a lot of the companies I'm thinking of couldn't articulate their sales process. There could be an owner who's very, very skilled and talented and naturally intuitive, or a seasoned professional like yourself. But how do we take that to where any average person coming in the door
Sure.
could tap into it?
Yeah. So the sales process, if we take a look at the sales process on a very basic level, and if you're a new sales leader or a new sales rep, you have to have these four pieces in place,
Hmm.
just as a process perspective. Um, the first thing is you've got to identify like what your core message is.
Hmm.
And what does that mean? Well, it's really the story, because one of the biggest things about being a sales rep and what I've seen working with other sales reps, training with other sales reps, they struggle with articulating the story that they bring to the table to help solve that problem for the customer.
Hmm.
And it is probably the number one thing that I see in terms of just having clarity around what they bring. So it's kind of like the question of like, hey, what is it that you do? And a lot of people like stumble and fumble around that. Well, you got to get that story like nailed down.
Yeah, the
Um,
one-liners and the
yep,
elevator speeches, right?
100%, and be crystal clear on it, and develop the story in a way that connects with your prospect, if that makes sense. The other one is um, you got to establish essentially clarity around what the problem is that you're solving for. Because keep in mind, the products and services that we offer in the marketplace, products and services are developed to solve a problem. And if it's if
Ideally,
it's
hopefully.
yeah, hopefully, right? If it's there to solve a problem for that prospect. And if we're not clear on the actual problem, what we're solving for, that's a big problem. And that all leads back to point number three, is identifying who your ideal customer is.
And there's somebody listening to this going, well, that's obvious. We solved the problem of new roofs. And actually, um, you probably don't. That's not actually what you're solving. Um, or we solved the problem of HVAC. It's like, no. There's a chapter in our book called What You're Really Selling. It's got kind of a method of breaking down and figuring out what that core thing is. But it's not the quarter-inch drill bit. It's the quarter-inch hole, right? Or
Uh,
furthermore, it's the shelf hung up on the wall, right?
Yes,
Um,
100%.
so I would just stop, because you just said that like that's a really profound thing, and I would just stop and say, Like, when's the last time you had that exercise with your team? And it seems so elementary, but get out a whiteboard and be like, no, what are we actually solving? We're not installing a new roof. We're making insurance company pain go away, right? We're making friction go away from having to deal with the cost of a new roof. Or we're not selling
Yes.
windows, we're selling comfortable living rooms, right? So, any other suggestions as to how a founder or a sales leader might bring their team to that core message?
Yeah. Yeah. The biggest thing about a sales leader, they've got to really sit down and really think through what their story is, how they're solving the problem for that particular client. They've got to understand who they're talking to, who their ideal
Mm,
customer is. And, you'd be surprised on how many people really can't articulate, well, who is my core buyer?
mm,
Who's actually buying my product? Because it all goes back to this whole idea of like empathy and understanding where they're coming from. Because if you don't understand who they are,
right,
who are you serving?
right.
And that's a big gap. And all these things that I'm talking about is essentially really the kind of the pre-work before you even engage with the prospect. And then you take them down the sales process of this customer journey and experience.
So would you say it's pausing before you just run in with a piece of paper trying to sell something?
100%. Yep.
When I was in advertising sales, I would actually used to sit in the parking lot, um, and just watch how people interacted with the business. I might get my lunch for somebody was on my list and just go eat lunch and watch in the car and watch people going out of that business. I might go in there as a potential customer if it was something I could remotely buy, and hear what the dialogue is, right? So it's the whole two ears, one mouth thing, right? Two eyes, one mouth,
Yeah.
two sides of the brain, one mouth, right? So,
There you go.
so I hear core message. So we're going to define our core message. To
Yep.
get really clear and elementary, I guess, about the problem we actually solve and who we solve it for, right?
Yep.
That's steps one and two. What's step three?
It's identifying who your core customer is.
Okay.
That's really step three.
Okay.
And so identify core message, identify what the problem is, and identify who your ideal customer is. You have those things in your toolkit, if you will, and you as a sales leader, every single sales meeting that you lead your sales team with, you talk about these three things every single sales meeting
Yeah.
because it's a very easy thing not to talk about, because you get in the day-to-day minutia of going out there and doing your sales activities every single day. But
Yeah.
these are the things that literally drive the entire sales process. Knowing who you talk to, what problem you're solving, and what is your story, because that's what you're communicating to these prospects.
Yeah. Thinking about my in-home sales guys, there's they may just get a lead off the website and they may not know. Well, I'm actually I guarantee you they don't know, um, quote unquote, who they're going in to sell to. But if they would stop for 30 seconds and look at the zip code, probably the make or model of the car that's in the garage, that tells you a lot of psychographically. Somebody who drives a Toyota is a totally different beast than somebody who drives a BMW than somebody who drives a Dodge, right? There's some psychographic things you can pick up there. How neat they keep the yard. That tells you a lot about them. What kind of flag is hanging on the door? What kind of bumper stickers are we talking about? Right? Like
Yep.
we can take these pauses and go, okay, I'm going to empathetically align my conversation with this person instead of being some random agent that walked in with
Yes.
a product that they kind of sort of think they need, right?
100%.
Um,
100%.
I'll go to the creepy level and say, what if if you're a local salesperson, what if you punch their name into Facebook and see who they know that you know? You might find some mutual friends, right? You might get a clue about what they're into. Usually, people's profile. Mine would be me flying, right? I would have a picture of me in a headset, so somebody could be like, "Oh, you fly airplanes or whatever," and yours might be you fly fishing or something. I don't think I've looked you up on Facebook, but just use the tools that are available to you, and probably 80% of the time you're going to find something, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's all being about like being aware. You got to be self-aware about yourself and how you're communicating and connecting with other people. You can't just, dump product and features and benefits and all that kind of stuff to the customer without even asking them a question, right? So,
Our favorite
um,
question is, what are you trying to make happen?
yes. Yep.
What's
What's your
what's
goal?
yeah. What's the big dream? Yeah, right.
Yes.
So I've got spend some time in your core message. Like every business owner should do that. And I'm going to guess Brad would be willing to help you with that. But um, while you're doing that, clarify down to a bullet point level the problem you solve. And then three, while you're doing that, get really serious about who you solve it for.
Yes.
There might be 3 or 4 different avatars you serve, right? Would you agree with that?
100%. 3 or 4 different avatars. And in that specific story, a key element behind that is part of your story is testimonials,
Hmm.
right? Part of your story is, hey, we ran across this problem with this particular situation. This is what
Yeah.
we've been able to do with them, and this was what the outcome was. I don't know if you're in that same situation or not, but thought you might be,
Yeah.
interested in hearing what I wanted to share with you.
Donald Miller talks about the power of narrative transformation. And when you're telling somebody a story, it engages that imaginative part of your mind.
Yes.
Like you take somebody, there are 2 hemispheres of the brain. The left is generally in charge of numbers, logic, black and white, factual things, right?
Yes.
Um, the right brain is in charge of no language, patterns, uh, a savant,
Yeah.
um, a goofball meandering around, humming tunes and looking at colors and making, you know, meaning out of things that don't have any logical sense to them. Well, that part of the brain tends to be, or not tends to be, actually is where relationships and deep feelings and associative memories of good things come, right? Left part of the brain is what's it cost? How fast can you get it to me? What are the express guarantees of the product? Is this feature as good as somebody else? So if we think about it, we want to cause somebody to imagine a new world with us. We
Yes.
would get as far away from product details as possible.
Yes.
And where do stories and patterns and where we experience and enjoy art, where does that come from? Comes from the right side of the brain, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
take them to the right side of the brain. And
Yeah.
stories is
It's
the easiest way to do that.
yeah, it's interesting because I know Donna Miller talks a lot about just how our brain works, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about clearing your message so customers will listen.
Hmm.
And that's really what it comes down to. And you know this, Brandon, already, but your brain, the way it works, to your point, is this right side, left side, but your brain is constantly scanning for information
Hmm.
based off of 2 things: survive or thrive.
Yes.
And so, your brain is burning up crazy amount of calories. And if
Hmm.
you don't come in to your sales meeting or a prospect meeting or whatever that might be, and your message is all over the place, you're going to lose that prospect within the first minute of that conversation.
When you confuse, you lose.
Yep. Bingo. So what that prospect's doing is they're looking for a way to survive or thrive. And if you can't give them that in a clear, concise message, they're on to the next.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. I'm going to put you on the spot in a minute. I'm going to ask you what you do and have us give you your example of that. But is there a step 4 after we've got core message, problem you solved, core customer defined?
So that's kind of the pre-work. So the step 4 is now you actually engage into the actual sales activities
Hmm.
and going out there and prospecting. So you got to have a plan and strategy on how you do that to bring what I call it is a customer life cycle. So there's really like 3 parts of the customer life cycle, right? There's the beginning stages of marketing, putting out content, adding value, whatever that might look like to attract that lead into
Yeah.
your sales funnel, if you will.
Yeah.
So once you have that, then you go into the actual sales process itself. And every company has a sales process, whether they know it or not. The gap is they don't write it down and get it out of their head and put it on paper.
The gap is theirs probably sucks.
Yeah.
They have one,
Yeah.
it just sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
But on a very basic level, sales process, once that lead comes in, you book a discovery call, you make a presentation, and you close with the agreement. And then after that, your goal is to make them a raving fan. It doesn't end there. You got to cultivate that relationship
yes.
long term.
Yes. We would call that the yesterday customer, right? We talk a lot
Yes.
about that on this show and in the book and all that stuff. That's probably in time, that's your most valuable type of sales and marketing activity you could possibly do.
Yep.
How would you like to
It's
wake up to half of your sales goal met? And
amazing.
yeah, because your past customers love you and are coming back or are sending their friends and family. And
Well,
we
and it's interesting through this whole entire customer life cycle, after you have the pre-work done, you got to figure out the right strategies to get those leads in the door, right? Whether they reach out to you, Brandon, and work with you on their marketing strategy, their website, putting a lead magnet together, whatever that might look like, they got to have that strategy right. Um, Once that's in place, and here's what's interesting, right? I think a lot of business owners and founders, what they'll do is they'll find themselves in a situation where they're just focused on growing sales.
yeah.
They're just focused on we need a market,
Mhm.
which is great because you definitely need to do that. But what happens when that lead comes through the door after Brandon, you've done all this work for them and the leads don't close? Well, then
Yeah.
that tells me that there is no sales process in place, or at least a process in place that actually is engaging with that customer. Because again, you're the guide, you're bringing them through this journey.
Yes.
And that's the difference.
We're that what I heard there is back to what you originally said. We got to fix our mindset.
Yeah.
Our job is not to get sales. Our job is to produce new outcomes for human beings so that they will want to buy from us.
Yes.
Fair?
Because that's the byproduct, right? Like revenue is a byproduct of the customer experience.
The
And
lagging indicator.
yep,
So
exactly.
if you're this just blows my mind how many people get off track here, but if your sales are down now, don't don't yell at them about what's gone on the last couple of weeks. Um, go look back what they were doing 180 days ago, and I might, frankly suggest what were you allowing them to do, or what were you leading them to do 180 days ago, or what were you not leading them to do?
Sure.
And if we're talking about a 3 to 5 year growth, like looking at how fast we're growing compared to, you know, 3 years ago,
Yeah.
if that's not what you'd like it to be, guarantee you this follow through and this mindset of holistic customers are not is not being taken seriously, because my companies that continue to grow at this astounding rates, they have yesterday marketing down. Like that is a core function. It's not when they feel like it. It's not when things are slow. It's no, that is missional for them, because your family, your business, whoever decided to do a transaction with us, and that is the first of many servant-hearted activities we plan to do for you. If salespeople just woke up with that mentality, what would happen?
It would be a game changer, right? Like if they woke up with the mentality that, you know what, we're on a mission, more of a servant heart kind of mentality,
Yeah,
and really have this idea of like building relationships. And I know I keep talking a lot about it, but that's how important this is in understanding, your customer base in a way that you're truly building a relationship with them, not just in the now, after you get the project done, but ongoing forever.
yeah,
And that's the mentality you have to have. When I grew up in our family business, Brandon, the whole premise behind the customer walking in the store is that we had the mentality that this customer is a lifetime customer. And
love it.
there's a moment in time when that customer comes in transaction that it's called the moment of truth. And the
Mm,
moment of truth really boils down to how you treat that customer in that moment and what value do you bring to them in a way that helps them, essentially move forward, if you will, or solve their problem, whatever that might be.
so powerful. This is a lifetime customer. They may happen to buy something today, they may not, but either way, they're a lifetime customer. So let's treat them as
Yep.
such. That's
Yep.
amazing. I love that. So core message, problem you solve, define your core customer,
Yep.
execute the sales activities, which um, I just want to clarify, it's not get lead, set appointment, sale.
Right.
That's the mentality that's screwing America, right? That's screwing our
Yeah.
sales world, right? It is articulate what it is instead of get lead, set appointment, sale. Do that
Yeah.
one more time.
So that's kind of the underlying kind of components of what most organizations do, right? And you have to have kind of that basic fundamental. But where the difference is, and here's the thing. So people think about sales as like this, I don't know, for some reason, sales has somewhat of a stigma. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And the reason is that most salespeople are transactional. Most salespeople are out there just to get theirs and get their number and their commission or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
And that's what a customer expects. A customer and prospects expects that kind of experience. So the difference is, if you really want to make waves in the ocean, if you will, is that knowing the customer expectation and exceeding the customer expectation is where the magic happens. So exceeding the
That could be a
customer
whole nother podcast.
expectation.
Yeah, that could be a whole nother episode that we're going to do someday. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
keep going. Sorry.
So the expectation for that prospect is to go through lead, discovery call, presentation, close. Well, a lot of salespeople that start off, it doesn't really work that way linear, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of different things that have to happen in between. And one of them is once the lead comes through and you set that discovery call, well, when that lead comes through, it's on the salesperson's shoulders to reach out to that prospect. And the biggest thing that I see in this part of the sales process today is that that salesperson will only follow up with that lead maybe one or two times, maybe three if they're really, really feeling like, hey, maybe I get a chance to do this.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that it takes 8 to 10 touches of that prospect before they even engage with you into a discovery call. And you're thinking to yourself as a salesperson, well, gosh, this lead reached out to us, or, you know, they responded to my email a couple of times, but they went dark.
Yeah.
Well, you can't stop there. You got to keep going.
There's really no such thing as a dead lead.
That's right.
There's just
That's
a lifetime customer who hasn't needed us yet.
Yes. Yes. Now, the question is, well, out of those 8 to 10 times that you're touching that customer, well, what does that even mean? Or what does that even look like? Well, it's a cadence, and it's a mix of different touch points between emails, calls, and what I use today is LinkedIn messaging. LinkedIn is probably one of the most powerful sales tools that you have at your disposal. If you don't have LinkedIn and you're not prospecting from LinkedIn, if you're in B2B business, you have to be using that. You got to be using that tool.
Cool. There's so much you can gather and little influence things. I mean, people that use LinkedIn, I mean, I do. It's a daily thing. It's just like Facebook. It's their morning news in a way, and just a tiny little blip on their radar every day or every week. That's what we call the tomorrow customer, is committing to being in their lives every day and adding value. So we are so aligned. I know we're going to do some awesome things together and helping, some of our agency partner clients improve their sales processes. I know we said we could do a whole nother episode on customer experience, but
Yeah.
do you have a couple of things that you could just offer really quickly that a average salesperson who's getting average results could do today and implement that to improve that experience?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a couple different things that you can do as a new salesperson. One is deliver value to your prospects that they don't expect. Whether it's an article or whether it's, hey, maybe I found out that Brandon loves Bass Pro Shops, so I'm going to go down to Bass Pro Shops and buy him a Bass Pro mug and ship it to him unannounced with a personal note handwritten to him.
Love it.
Another thing that you could do in your sales process is continue to mine for information and data in your respective industry and make a list of some of those key articles that you found really valuable and send it off to them and say, hey, thought you might like this, thought you might get a lot of value out of this. But then I would say the last piece is as soon as you close the deal, the very first thing that you want to do is take out a thank you card and handwrite a thank you note to that prospect and thank them for their business. Because nobody else does it today. If you want to stand out as a trust and authority salesperson, that's the way to do it.
Love it. Such a rare thing. It's like 1 out of 100 sales pros does that.
Yeah.
And when you get it done for you, it's just the best thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the sales experience, or that's the customer experience elevation, and that is like a repeatable thing, and you can get the reputation as having like this amazing rapport about you, and that bleeds into other customers and referrals. So, I think we need to do a recap, and I think if we gave anybody any more value, we would either have to split this into 2 episodes, or people are just their heads are gonna explode. So if I can recap what we've done.
Yeah.
It's all about mindset. Sales leaders, stop talking about quotas and start talking about the core message of your company. Start getting super serious about what it is that you do, the impact you make on the world, and help your people say that well. You're going to get really serious about the problem you actually solve. Less focus on training for your features and benefits, but more the problem you solve and the outcome. And we're going to get language going that helps us articulate that quickly. Third is we're going to define our core customer so that it's so obvious that anybody just knows who it is and we know what their needs, pains, hopes, and fears are. Fourth, we're going to do the sales activities, but it's bigger than lead, appointment, sale. It's actually lead, curate, treat them as if they're a lifetime customer already. That's one of my favorite things Brad said. They're a lifetime customer and we just haven't had a chance to buy yet. Like, or treating them that way, right? And then when we get that chance to do the appointment, don't stop. Keep curating. And then when we get the sale, keep curating, right? And then you're going to elevate that customer experience. In the middle, sending them things that just made you think about them because you're naturally curious and empathetic. And then you're going to use the art of the handwritten note, and you're going to be a world-class salesperson. And maybe you'll start getting some results like Brad. Maybe you'll be one of these double your sales quota type guys. So does that sound like a good plan, Brad?
Yeah, that sounds great to me.
So we've definitely got to have you back for a whole nother episode on like expounding on customer experience. Like we could jive on that so well. I know you have a lot to offer. In the meantime, there are some people listening and I know they need your help. I know they're going, I know I need this, but how do I get started? Would you be willing to help them, and how would they reach out to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, they can. If they need help or have questions, I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with them. Best way to get a hold of me is by my email, which is bradpearse@simplifiedsales.com. Or they can jump on my website and they'll see a button there that says schedule a discovery call.
Yeah. I'd recommend doing a workshop with Brad. I've seen his process and it's really great. And his fee is ridiculously low for the value you're going to get out of it. You're going to pay for it in a couple extra sales. And I know that will be just scratching the surface of what he'll be able to help you do. So Brad, thank you so much for being with our audience. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom so freely. You have already delivered a better than average customer experience, and I'm just grateful that we got to experience that with you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brandon.
We'll talk to you next time. And until then, we'll be back here every Monday answering your real life marketing questions, because marketers who can't teach you why
are just a fancy lie.
Have a great week.